Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Post ProRes. I'm John Pollock, along with WH Park. And before we were setting up to do this show, I was thinking to myself that it's not just been a month since we've done a show, because I was not here last month. That was the big Dylan Fox show. So, WH, it's been a long time since you and I have done a show together, but I'm glad to be speaking with you.
Well, I appeared on a couple of cafes, and
that's true. You were on the Hangout.
SmackDown review, I think, that you did on a live.
That's true, but we're going way back at this point.
Oh yeah,
that feels like 5 years ago, the beginning of January.
It does, doesn't it? I got to say, shout outs to Dylan Fox for
great show.
Coming through bench. He was scheduled to be on the show with the three of us all together, but we have to get him on soon. Maybe in the next. Maybe in the next month or so. I think it'd be great. I mean, he's been keeping up with a lot of stuff, like maybe more so than me as far as watching Japanese wrestling. And there's a lot of Japanese wrestling out there, as we'll talk about.
Yeah, well, why don't we just get an update from you? Because certainly Canada, the U.S., it has significantly been impacted over the past 2 weeks now with the COVID-19 pandemic. But this is something that, Japan has been handling and dealing with for much longer than that. So what's the latest from just day-to-day life for yourself, WH?
Well, it's pretty normal here, John. It's like there's nothing going on in the rest of the world, as far as like how Japan's treating this outbreak of COVID-19. We got it first because, of course, our proximity to places like China and South Korea, where it really hit hard. But seemingly we had it under control for the time that it arrived in Japan via, people coming in from other places that were infected, and including the cruise ship that's, docked at the port of Yokohama that has like about over 400 people who are still infected with it, I think. But I'll say this, like, it kind of really weirds me out about how we're kind of business as usual for the most part. Like, there are things closed, obviously. Like, obviously, big gatherings have been canceled. The Disney and all the other major theme parks have been shut down, things like that. But most restaurants still open, people still going out. I went out yesterday for lunch to, a grilled barbecue place, and it wasn't super busy for lunchtime, but there were still people there. And there are things where I'm like, am I doing the right thing going out with my friends? And there was like three of us all together. So I'm keeping my own social circle very small when I go out. And the week before, I went down to the port area here in Numazu, and it was busy. I was like freaking out. I was like, what the hell's going on? Why are all these people out here? And then I'm thinking, well, I'm out. What am I doing being out at this time? But yeah, it's weird that it's so normal here.
It's interesting to see as well, like where everyone's sort of line is, because it's impossible not to understand the urgency behind all of this. But we're like, as people, we're just so not equipped for just isolating ourselves from the world. It's not normal. This is not normal circumstances by any means. So I'm questioning that quite a lot of, I need to go out every day and just walk for a bit. But you've got to mitigate that kind of risk. And it seems that, people are going to be in different economic situations where continuing to run their businesses or to try and keep some kind of normalcy in a completely non-normal time. It almost takes that, you lean on your leadership to maybe have to be in that position to have to flat out state what can and cannot be done. And that sort of feels like where we are at the moment in Canada, where it seems like we are one step away from, certain measures being absolutely put in place that say no non-essential businesses can be open at this point. And I feel like that's where maybe things are going, at least here in Canada.
I think I have like this unique situation here in the Shizuoka prefecture, because we have, as of this recording, 3 confirmed cases. Only 2 of them were like from out of the prefecture, like people who came into the, from like Nagoya or somewhere else. And then they, became symptomatic while here. And they've been isolated in hospitals here. But like we're next to the prefecture of like Aichi and Kanagawa, and Aichi is where, Nagoya is, and Aichi is, and Kanagawa is where Yokohama is. And those prefectures have, significant larger numbers of infection rates. So it's kind of weird that we're in the middle of these two, kind of not hotbeds, but, places that have significant number of, infections compared to Shizuoka, but we've only had 3 confirmed cases. And I use that word confirmed, because like, I don't know how many actual people are confirmed, because Japan is going out of its way, in my opinion, to keep the numbers low in order to kind of try to salvage the Olympics for the summer, which, just my own opinion, I don't think they're happening.
I can't imagine them happening. It's, to me, like, it seems from like the outside looking in that Japan is at least at a stage right now where it feels like they're dipping their toe back into trying to resume life as normal. And the last thing would be a massive congregation of people from all around the world into Tokyo this summer. That seems completely ludicrous to me. And the only reason would be, again, it's so many of these decisions are weighted by the economics of them. Like, all things equal, these Olympics are not happening. The only reason you would be pushing forward is the amount invested of what an Olympics entail.
Oh yeah, and I have to feel sorry for a lot of people who've already bought tickets to the Olympics. I think, from what I understand, like, there's no refunds for people who've bought tickets.
Yeah, I feel for all these people. It's like, this is just something, like, it is a global pandemic, and there's no preparation for this. There's no manual on how to necessarily go about life throughout this period. And maybe the sense of frustration for many is knowing that it's not as though there's some deadline that this ends on this day or things resume at this point. It's all a day-to-day process. As we look at some companies, and we're going to get into them, like Stardom reopening their doors, some companies that have run throughout this time, where is is that a sense of the overall feeling at the moment that things are slowly getting back, that Japan is kind of slowly getting out of the woods, or do you think that that's kind of premature at this point?
I really have a sense of optimism about, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, here in Japan. I've been going to work every day. I haven't lost a single day of work because of this. The parent company where I work at is very, stringent about, informing people, like, wash your hands, use soap, and don't go out, like, in your free time. Like, if you're going to go out, do socializing, keep it down to a minimum. But at the same time, I see, people breaking those rules. Like, I get students, I say, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're having a drinking party. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, why? And then they're like, oh, it's a welcome party. We got a new employee joining our team. And I'm like, how many people are going to be at this? Oh, about 10 or 15. I'm like, okay, is that a good idea? But, like, what can I say to them? It's like, that's their life. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't want you to get infected and then bring it to my office, during our lessons. So
all of us have to be that person. Like, it does kind of force you to have to be that person that sometimes is the kind of the reality check. Like, in normal times, like, of course, like, that's completely normal to get together with 10 to 15 people. But in this time, I think that we need to rely on that kind of thinking, WH, and that kind of reaction. And it's not always the most fun person to be, but I do think, like, we need that.
Yeah, I tell people, like, hey, if you feel sick, don't come in here. I will get angry at you. I've been very upfront. Like, if you cough and it's a dry cough and you're feeling, you got a fever or something, and you come here, I'm going to be very, very upset. And like, I will tell my liaison with the company, like, listen, why is this person in my office? Like, why are they even at work? This is, like, really bad. But, the parent company would probably really, really stringently frown upon anyone who came to work sick. So, like, most people are self-isolating, people who don't feel well, whether they have, the cold or, the regular flu, that they just stay home. But still, it's very worrisome when I think about people going out.
It was only a few weeks ago that we did that show with Braden and Davey for the Patreon, and Mike was supposed to join us, and he ended up doing it by Skype because he gave us the heads up that day. And this is before, like, everything really went to the next level, but he wasn't feeling well, and he just said, I don't think I should come. And I have so much, like, I appreciated it so much then, and it's like 100 times that now. I would have been furious in hindsight had he just, tried to come, and like, that's it. Like, this is not about I'm Mr. COVID-19 tough guy that I can just battle through this. It's other people potentially at risk in all of this that I think we're also, there's probably a deeper conversation about this whole thing. It's about thinking of others as much as yourself. Definitely.
I try to maintain an eye on my own health. Sometimes I get like a stuffy nose and I'm like, what's going on? Is this my allergies acting up? Then I'm just, check online for the symptoms, and I'm like, okay, I don't have any of these. It's my eyes are a bit itchy and my nose is a bit runny. It's my allergies. And that's the tough thing also. Like, allergies are really severe this time of year, John. Mm-hmm. Like, so I feel sorry for a lot of people who can't get masks for like when they normally, get their allergies at this time of year, when it really hits a peak, and like there's a shortage of those. Like, yeah. I can buy toilet paper. Thank God. I can buy most food. Like, I don't think there's any shortages of food in the supermarkets. Like, it's easy to find all these things. The only thing that is difficult is hand soap, and face masks, which are very common in Japan, but like they're constantly running out of stock. And for me, it's not that big of a deal, but like people who have really severe allergies, my heart goes out to them.
It's bizarre. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, we're chatting on a Sunday. I have not spent a penny since Tuesday. I've not bought anything, like not spent a penny since Tuesday. And I mean, you look at that at the overall picture, like that is our economy. And the effects of this are just going to be so widespread whenever things, are back to normal. And what is normal even going to look like, whether it be 6 months, whether it be 6 weeks from now, who knows? I guess we should kind of narrow in on, it's always a weird transition to go from all of this worldwide effect to kind of our little alcove of professional wrestling. But, this certainly has been, like, we've had a longer sample size of the Japanese market, of how it's been impacted. And I feel that if you are a follower of Japanese wrestling from this side of the world, I think you understood the effects of this pandemic maybe ahead of some people that, over here were maybe not focusing on it. Like, we saw firsthand, like, the significance of what it means for New Japan to wipe out all of their shows. Like, that is not some minor precaution being taken. That is severe. I mean, just looking at the industry, it's going to be crippling for some industries over there, that it's absolutely hand to mouth with surviving on your live gates that for most companies have been non-existent.
Oh, I mean, like, the thing with New Japan specifically is, like, I'm not that worried about them because they have a parent company, Bushiroad, who has a lot of money. But
the small ones, though, those would be the concerning ones. The ones that, do not have those large companies that are, the smaller promotions that are just must be struggling so much.
Well, we had Wrestle One announce that they're pretty much done, and I got to think that they're going to be done anyways. That's my feeling, but this just kind of like sped up the timetable of them closing down and having to say, like, yep, we're shutting down operations. All our employees are going to be let go, and like including a lot of their contracted talent that's going to be free agents from this point going forward. But like, where are they going to go work? That's the other thing, right? So, New Japan specifically, they wiped out entire month or two of bookings. In terms of like, their storylines, with the New Japan Cup being completely lost to them. And like, you sent me an email, like, talking about our topics, and you're asking me, do I think that the March 31st Sumo Hall show is going to go ahead? On the surface, I can't imagine trying to run a venue that big. And with what storyline? I have no idea what they're going to build towards.
It would be a lot of cold matches that, I mean, as much it would just be New Japan's back. That would be the promotion of the show. Specific to you, I mean, how comfortable would you be going to a wrestling show of any size right now?
Not at all. Like, 2 weeks ago, I'm talking with Jojo Remy, and we're talking about going to the the March 29th Korakuen Hall show for Pro Wrestling Noah, which has 4 title matches only. Like, right? Because they had to reshuffle all their booking, and they said, okay, we're just going to do a 4-match show. They're all going to be title matches, and including the GHC title match between Go Shizaki defending against Kazuki Fujita, and like 2 weeks ago, Joey John and I like, oh, let's get tickets, and then he reserved tickets, and then he says, I didn't pay for them because I'm not sure if it's going to go ahead. Okay, and then a couple of days later, he says, do you want me to try to reserve tickets again? And I said, no, because the thought was, John, like, I think it's going to get canceled. And then as we get closer to it, like, I talked to him yesterday and we were like, I don't think the show's getting canceled. He's like, neither do I. And then we're like, do you want to go? And I said, I don't want to go anymore because, like, I don't feel it's going to be safe and he's like, yeah, like, because we were watching kind of like clips from the DDT show that just ran, and there's a lot of people there, John.
Yeah.
And I just see all these people like gathered together, and I'm looking at what's happening outside the world, and it's not like Japan's closed its borders. They haven't. And I'm just thinking, is this a good idea? And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, I don't blame DDT for running a show necessarily. I mean, at the same time, they're also owned by a parent company that has a lot more money than Bushiroad does, like that Cyber Asian. Mm-hmm. No, do I feel comfortable being in Korakuen Hall with potentially more than 200 people? Like, no, I'm not going. I'm not going to any wrestling show for the foreseeable future, John. I'm more than fine watching it at home.
And that's like another question in all of this. It's just the idea of being able to run shows for fans again. Is there going to be that lag of the public being willing to go to shows? And that goes for all sports and entertainment out there. Is there going to be that caution for several months that I'm gonna watch this basketball game on TV? I'm not really ready to spend money at the moment. That's another factor for that's gonna come out of this as well. So, as of now, New Japan has not canceled that March 31st show, but it's to me, it's definitely a question mark, and whether there's going to be a show or not then, and when they can get back to normal. They were also set to put tickets on sale for the Wrestling Dynasty card this summer at Madison Square Garden. You would have to wonder what are the prospects of doing that at the moment, and potential restrictions when it comes to travel. Like, will talent even be able to come over here by that point? Like, so many questions that not a whole lot of answers at the moment.
Well, a lot of the shows, like, that are running Korakuen and smaller venues, they're saying that they're going to check your temperature. If your temperature is over 37 degrees Celsius, you're not going to be allowed in. They're going to give out free masks. And this is like, All Japan stated this. Stardom has stated this. I can imagine DDT stated this as well. Are they going to do that for a crowd the size of a venue for Sumo Hall? I don't see how that is like feasible. They'd have to open the doors and tell people to start coming in at like 10 a.m. just to do a 6 o'clock start, John. And I don't want to be in Sumo Hall for 6 fucking hours before a 4-hour show potentially. That's insane to me.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously for something of that magnitude, I mean, how equipped are they to be just taking people's temperatures of that volume and making sure all safety precautions are in place for something like that? There is not a chance in the world I would be attending a show anywhere in the world right now.
No, I wouldn't go to like the smallest venue possible. And like one of the smallest venues in Japan, John, is, I think it's, what's the name of it? Ichigaya Factory. Like where Gato Move runs. And I'm looking at Cage Match and they've been having shows there and they have like, listed 200 people at these shows. I'm like, that's insane. I can't imagine wanting to be in that small of a venue, that close together with so many other people watching a wrestling show. I don't care how much you love that company. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of understanding of different, performers that are in awful predicaments, companies that are so reliant on trying to push through in all of this. But to me, you just have to look at the overall picture, and it's, okay, do we have to, like, everybody has to take some kind of immediate hit. It's unfortunate, but it seems that the ultimate safety precaution is to do so now so that we can curb this as much as possible. For those that maybe are not familiar, who are some of the companies that have been running throughout this time?
Well, I think the big one has to be Big Japan Pro Wrestling. They have not really lost any step. They've been running shows, even, no cancellations with the COVID-19 outbreak in Japan. And they haven't even been doing like empty arena shows. They've had fans at their shows, for the entire time. And to me, that tells me that they cannot afford not to run shows, that if they don't run these shows and get at least some revenue from the live gate, that they're probably going to go out of business, which is really shocking to me because they tend to seem to be one of the more successful, like independent promotions in the country.
Yeah. It makes you wonder as well that, we've talked about it on previous episodes, the companies that have now secured like larger ownership and how much that's a bit of a safety net for some of these companies. And, that kind of dovetails with all of the discussion about All Japan over the last little while about, does this make them, reassess and look for that kind of, financial backing of a WWE, of a company that can support them in what are going to be lean times.
Well, outside of Big Japan, like DDT have run shows, like with audiences. Dragon Gate just did a show, I think, in Kobe that was already available on YouTube. Yeah. And they, like most of the smaller Joshi promotions have run shows with fans attending them, like not huge numbers, but still, I think anything over 50, even 50, to me, like I'm being very paranoid about this, but like anything over 100, I think you're really, taking a chance with like potential, exposure rates to people on the roster and to the fans themselves. So it's been pretty crazy, but I think Noah's going ahead. Noah just did a small house show in preparation for next week's Cork and Hall show. And now the big question is like, and seemingly All Japan is going to go ahead with the Champion Carnival. And that tells me like they can't afford not to run the Champions Carnival and get some revenue themselves. But the big question would be for me, what New Japan does, on the 31st and going forward with the upcoming Best of the Super Juniors tournament. What are they going to do for those?
Yeah. And we'll get into this with the Champion Carnival, but what will the status be of foreigners that we're going to be coming over? Is that going to be even possible? And to me, like the reason I look at that March 31st date from New Japan is that I think if they go ahead with that, I think everyone follows suit. I think that New Japan is really going to be the trendsetter of whether shows should be running or not, because if they run Sumo Hall, empty arena or not, I think that that's going to kind of give the okay to all the other companies to go ahead and follow the leader in New Japan.
And you got to think that they're going to cut a lot of the foreign talent coming over, because unless they already live in Japan, like people like Juice Robinson and people like, Zack Sabre Jr., like Will Ospreay lives in Japan, but he's back in the UK. So if he comes back, he has to put himself into, self-quarantine for 14 days minimum. And, like they might ask him, hey, can you come back 2 weeks before that date and see how you feel? Like, again, like you talked about this on your shows with Wei, John. Like, why are people, like, I wouldn't risk traveling, getting on a train, an airplane, especially at this time. To me, traveling is just insane. To like even ask people to come here, like on an airplane, would be so irresponsible to not only those performers, but to the people in the audiences that they're going to serve, because you don't know what can happen between them leaving their house to the time they get to like Narita Airport or Haneda Airport. So it's, to me, just, if you're going to run the carnival, I'm sorry for all those talents who live outside of Japan, but cancel their bookings and reshuffle the format of the tournament itself, and just go with people who are already here and who are not showing any signs of infection.
Yeah. And I mean, flights being affected, to me, that's, something that you have to be expecting in all of this. I mean, even domestically, that, it's that could be a very real possibility. When it comes to the shows that have been running, do you have any overall impressions of some of the empty arena settings and how different companies have been handling this, and just your own opinions of the empty arena shows?
Well, I think the most significant one that I've seen clips of. I haven't seen the entire show, but the DDT show that ran in Saitama Super Arena, which was completely empty. And I think the thing about DDT, because of the nature of their product, which, leans towards a lot of comedy, that they play into it a lot, and like they're trying to make things fun for the performers on these shows, and also for the audience that's watching at home on DDT Universe. So I think they've been doing a good job of like kind of playing into it. Now, obviously that point is kind of moot because they're running shows in front of audiences at Korakuen at least. But I did watch the entirety of the Stardom show from Korakuen Hall, No People Gate, and they really played into it as well. And I thought they did a really good job of it. I thought there was there's a benefit to having seconds in Japanese professional wrestling, John, because those seconds create a lot of the noise that you would normally hear from the audience members. And also, I have to give a shout out to like Jushin Thunder Liger, who was doing commentary for a lot of these matches. And he was just like doing his best to like trying to participate, being the de facto audience for these wrestlers. And
can I just correct you? You misrepresented WWE Hall of Famer, Jushin Thunder Liger.
Oh, sorry. Like, I forgot about that. He's going into that sham of a Hall of Fame. Okay, sure.
That had to have been the quickest announcement versus there's no way that Hall of Fame is happening WrestleMania weekend for Liger. Like, it was literally, he was announced that morning, and by the end of the day, everyone realized there would be no Hall of Fame, or at least Liger would not be able to attend. So it looks like they're going to push that off.
Yeah, I think like Georgia Smith, Davey Boy Smith's daughter, said like it's going to move to SummerSlam, right?
Yeah, that's what she was like throwing out there as a possibility. I don't even know if they've really set a plan in motion. Like, certainly that's something that they can just plop onto a future weekend where, in light of like WrestleMania this year, I think you just put all your eggs into another big weekend, providing SummerSlam is able to run as planned this year. I mean, that's just, there's way too many unknowns to really be able to even plan at this point.
But Liger at this Stardom show, John, like there's a point where like, he's interacting directly with Mayu Iwatani during and after her match, and she, like he's doing his best to like create an atmosphere that there's actually people in this venue of Korakuen Hall, like outside of the photographers and the production crew that are there. But like, I thought that show was really, really good. And like the top three matches, the Tokyo Cyber Squad versus Donna Del Mondo tag match was fun. I thought the tag team title match between Bea Priestley and Jamie Hayter, the current Goddess of Stardom tag team champions, versus Queen's Quest team of Utami Hayashishida and Momo Watanabe was excellent. I thought it was one of my favorite tag matches I've seen this year. And I thought,
is Bea Priestley the early front runner for Empty Arena Wrestler of the Year? I mean, I just watched two great matches with Bea Priestley this week, between this and the Will Ospreay match on the Wrestle Talk show.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I haven't seen that match, but like I heard it was a good match. Like, obviously she's in there with Ospreay, her boyfriend. So she's good, but like she's become a really good wrestler, I feel.
Let me just add, if you weren't aware that Will Ospreay and Bea Priestley were dating, the announcers during that Wrestle Talk show, they made sure that was absolutely clear multiple times.
I listened to the review from BWE this week, and I'm like, I have to watch this show just so I can experience this wonderful commentary from Alex Shane and whoever the other person is for this show. But yeah, definitely Bea Priestley's having quite a run in empty arena matches, so good on her. But we'll talk about this with the Cinderella tournament portion of the show. But like, she's in England obviously, so she can't come back to be in this tournament because she'd have to go into quarantine, obviously, once she arrives in Japan. So like, I think they just told her, don't bother. We'll just have this tournament without you. Jamie Hayter, she's in it. She's still in Japan. She hasn't gone back to the UK. So it's fine for her to be participating in it. But that was a great show. The Mayu Iwatani, Saki Kashima main event. It was okay. It was I thought a lot of stupid stuff in there. There's one point, John, where like Saki like just knocks her from that middle part of the orange seat section of Korakuen, and Mayu just rolls down the entire stairs down to the bottom. And I was just like, she's done this spot before. I hate it every time she does it.
Well, the crowd ate it up though.
They were going insane for everything she did that was like really high risk and dangerous. And that's the other thing is like people are doing these really insane spots in front of no people, and I'm just like, why? Like, just save it for, and not just in Japanese wrestling, but like in wrestling in general. But hey, you know, it is what it is. But I thought that show was overall a really fun show to watch. I urge people, if you haven't watched Stardom, it's free on YouTube. Go watch it. And just if you don't have a lot of time, which I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm sure a lot of people have lots of time. Watch the last 3 matches, and that's all you need to really get a sense of the kind of the quality of the promotion.
Yeah, Priestley and Hayter have really good like mannerisms about them. I think like they really gel together. I noticed it at the Stardom show we went to back in January, and I just think I think B. Priestley has improved greatly over the past year as well in this, and you know. Hayashishita and Momo Watanabe. It was a really entertaining match, ending with Priestley using the Kamagoye and then the Japanese Ocean Suplex after a V-trigger. So 13 minutes and 40 seconds it went. That was the only match I saw on this card. I did not see the rest. But the Cinderella tournament, they are going to be streaming it on YouTube Tuesday morning. Is it just the opening round matches that are on YouTube? That's kind of how...
Yeah, so it's the opening round matches, which is like 16 people, so it's 8 matches.
8 matches, yeah.
They're gonna stream those on YouTube for free, and then everything else is gonna be available on Stardom World.
Right.
So like the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the finals will be available by midnight of the same day in Japan, and an English subtitle version of the pre-match promos for the first round only will be available on Stardom World about a week later. And I guess I can say, like, tentatively, I'm scheduled to review this with Davey Portman for the Up Next Patreon, I think. So I've been talking to him about doing something with them, help out, you know, create some extra content for them. And seemingly Davey has a lot of time on his hands, unfortunately, because of his work situation. But yeah, so listen, keep an eye out for announcement about that. I'll be doing a review with Davey, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll plug that on the site, and it's patreon.com/upnextup. NXT, if you're not familiar. That'll be a great show with you guys. So that's airing Tuesday on YouTube, 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 6:30 p.m. in Japan. The first 8 matches of the tournament, which we have Momo Watanabe versus Starlight Kid, Julia versus Jungle Kiona, Azumi versus Konami, Shuri versus Jamie Hayter, Tam Nakano versus Saki Kashima, Natsuko Tora versus Saya Kamatani, Utami Hayashishida versus Maika, and Hana Kimura versus Mayu Iwatani. So this is I always love this tournament each year. It's especially when they have the subtitled promos. I think they always do a really great job of that, setting up the personalities if you're not familiar with certain ones. And, you know, a tournament format, it's very easy to digest.
Yeah, I love it because all the matches are 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's
time limits. You
know, it's like if you have limited time, which for some they do, for some they don't at this current juncture. It's not a gigantic time commitment. They are very, very mindful of people's time, and I always appreciate companies like that. Yeah,
I think, you know, from this first round, I think all these matches are pretty interesting and have a lot of potential. Like Momo versus Starlight Kid, that's not really a singles match you see too often. I think that should be really, really good. I'm just scrolling down. I wrote a preview, John. I'm going to have it up on the site soon. Konami versus Azumi. I think that should be really good. Shuri Kondo. You know who she is. Like she did a UFC match, didn't she?
Yeah. Yes. She's done MMA before. Yes.
Well, like she's taking on Jamie Hayter. I think that's going to be a good match. Let's see what else. What's one more? I think the Hayashishida versus Maika match should be really good. And like Mayu versus Hana is always a good match. These two have like great chemistry with one another. But yeah, I did write a preview. I'm just like kind of editing it down, and then I'm going to submit it to you, and then we'll have it up on the site hopefully before Tuesday of, you know, Japanese time.
Perfect. Yeah. Look forward to that. Looking ahead to the Champion Carnival, you've also written a preview for that. I mean, one thing in all of this, I mean, we get more WH Park previews, which is always a treat for everybody.
Yeah, I have some time on my hands. I'm not going out. I'm still going to work, but like I don't really go out. Like I finish work, come home, weekends, maybe meet a friend or two. But most of the time I'm home. So I thought I'll write a preview for this. Like, I like doing these things. So here you go, John. There you go. But yeah, the Champions Carnival. I think this might potentially be out of date.
Well, it's currently scheduled to start April 6th and run through May the 5th. And yeah, I could definitely foresee some talent adjustments in all of this. When they rolled out the names, we had in the A block, Kento Miyahara, Zeus, Shuji Ishikawa, Yoshitatsu, Yuma Aoyagi, Kai, Joel Redman, Shigehiro Irie, Takashi Sugiura, and then in the B block, Suwama, Jake Lee, Ryoji Sai, WH's pick, Gianni Valletta, Hideyoshi Kamitani, Ayato Yoshida, Lucas Steele, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Tajiri, and that rounds out the A and B block. So yeah, I could definitely foresee several of these performers unable to participate here, but the tournament itself is still scheduled on All Japan's calendar.
Yeah, like to me, A block is amazing. B block is good, but A block just kills it primarily for the inclusion of Noah's Takashi Sugiura, the current GHC national champion. At the age of 49, John, this man is a better worker than about 1/3 of the other participants in this tournament.
By the way, when it comes to the seniors in Japan, I don't know if you saw Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak's warm up on SmackDown, where they're doing like the traditional warm up that you'd see Nagata and Nakanishi do, but Nagata chimed in and said, "This is not good," and Daniel Bryan did apologize.
I did see both a GIF of Bryan and Gulak doing the warm up, and I just thought it was tremendous. By the way, it's one of the few things I like in the WWE right now. Those two and Jack Gallagher do tattoo and all, John. I thought he was really great in that 10-man tag on 205 Live a couple of weeks ago. The only good empty arena match I've seen from the WWE, just as an aside there.
The recent tag match?
Yeah, the 10-man tag I thought was really, really good.
Oh, the 10-man on 205 Live. Sorry, I thought you meant the Bryan tag. Yeah, it's I haven't been following a lot of 205 Live, but to me, Bryan and Gulak, I think had you done that Elimination Chamber match was great. It was my favorite match on that show. I think that if you had done that in an empty arena, certainly you lose something, but I don't think it loses a ton. Like if those two had done that style of match, 15 minutes, I think I really would have been into that.
I think if you don't play up to the fact that there's no people in the audience and you just have a wrestling match, like which is what I think was beneficial for the Stardom show, then it becomes less awkward. If you just like point out, oh, there's nobody in the audience, but don't like promos are one thing, but the actual matches themselves should be just done as if they're wrestling in front of an audience and they have the same intensity and the same purpose of winning the match as you normally would. So to me, that 10-man tag match had that. Like a lot of these empty arena matches that I've seen in Japan also have that kind of feel to them, which is what makes them feel like natural to me in a lot of respects.
Yeah, I think if you can go for, like we've seen matches that work, matches that don't work, but I think especially in the case of like a Bryan Gulak, for instance, you replicate a fight as much as possible. I think it kind of lends itself to you're kind of watching with like the eyes of like a sports contest. And to me, seeing some of the UFC fights that they did in Brazil in an empty arena, like I have no hang up watching fights with an empty arena, whether that's just I'm used to it from past seasons of Ultimate Fighter, or it's just you're more focused on just what they're actually doing. They're not playing to a crowd. It's less of a hang up. I think sports would have that advantage that you're missing something with a crowd not there, but it doesn't. So much about pro wrestling is centered on playing to the crowd that if you can mitigate that, it can work. And we've also seen others like on the Wrestle Talk show, if you watch, like they, there's ways to make it work as given the circumstances. I thought
actually I watched Dynamite this past week, John, believe it or not. And I thought they did a really good job by having some of the roster members out in the audience, like, cajoling the people in the ring, like, MJF and 10 guy. And I think there was one point where Joey Janela and Cole Cabana are doing like the Tarzan Boy song when Jungle Boy is wrestling. I thought that was kind of funny. I thought, outside of like some of these older dudes being in the audience, I thought that's a good idea. I don't want to get into this because I think you and Wade already talked about it. I haven't listened to the Dynamite review yet, but I was just thinking, why is Jake Roberts here? Why is Tully Blanchard here? Why is JR here? What, you couldn't just let them stay home?
Oh,
so why are they getting on planes for this shit?
Wayne and I definitely asked those questions if you have not listened to our Dynamite review. But getting back to the Champion Carnival, it's kind of hard to like forecast much here because you don't know what might change here. And I mean, also taking into account, like, we're literally talking about, the age of certain people. I mean, there is a responsibility, I think, on the promotion as well to look at this and say, is this the best idea to not just push forward with a show, but an entire month-long tournament at the same time?
So I'm looking at I wrote all the ages of the participants.
Yeah.
Tajiri is 49. Let's see.
Sugiura is 49.
Sugiura is 49. Sawama's 43. Ishikawa's 44.
Yoshitatsu 42. And then the others are kind of sub 40s, but nonetheless, it's still something that it's potentially like you're traveling. It's not like they're staging these in one central location the entire time. There's travel mixed into all of this. There is, again, it's like, it's physical contact. It's something I'm having a struggle in kind of just overlooking at this point, like at a time when we are being so adamant about avoiding shaking hands and like all of this. And here we're watching pro wrestling. So I think it's certainly a hang up for me in all of this.
Yeah. I mean, my pick to win the whole thing, John, is Sugiura at the age of 49. And he's still going to do Noah shows, when he's not doing the Champions Carnival. So, I mean, I also pick him to be the one to win the carnival, get a title shot at Miyahara, and actually dethrone Kento and become the new Triple Crown champion. That's my prediction. And if that's their plan, I don't see why they would change that. But, Sugiura, beyond being 49 years old, this man has a history of heart problems. So I don't know how smart it is for him to be wrestling like with the frequency he is in the best of circumstances, let alone with, a disease a virus that, attacks your respiratory system.
Of the names here, who could you, like guys that are traveling in, like Davey Boy Smith Jr., Lucas Steele, Joel Redman? He's not based in Japan now, is he?
No, he's still in the UK. Like all these guys are out of the country as far as I know. I know like Lucas Steele worked that Wrestle Talk show.
He was on the Wrestle Talk show.
Davey Boy Smith's been doing like MLW. I don't know if those all have been pre-taped or not.
Well, he's here in North America, so he's not in Japan.
Okay. Valletta, I would assume is back in Malta right now. Cause I don't think they're paying for any of these guys just to stay in hotel rooms without working. So I don't think anyone who's not a Japanese native has been in the country. So honestly, John, like anyone from Europe, I would just say, forget it. Like, so that's Valletta out. Unfortunately for him, I'm not going to speak on my own personal feelings about like him as a performer, but like, I feel sorry for the guy. Like he's losing a big payday here. Everyone, Steele, Dave Boy Smith, Jr., all of them, I think they're going to get just canceled. Like, I don't think it's responsible, especially with like countries like the United States and the UK who seemingly don't have this under control or aren't taking the proper measures, like as a nation to curb like, the coronavirus. Like, I think it's completely responsible to bring these people in, and you need to take them out and just reshuffle your booking plans. And, they've had, more than a month to do this. So like, I would think there's no excuse not to do it, John?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that all precautions should be taken. And, I'm kind of at the point right now where I think a lot of these companies, the ones that are going to run, they're adamant about doing them. They're not forced not to. What is the safest way possible? Like WWE, they're adamant about doing WrestleMania. At least they are taping stuff in advance and trying to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. Are you most years, I would not even bother asking you this question because I think I would know the answer. But this year, out of just sheer curiosity, are you going to watch any of WrestleMania either night?
No. I think it's a complete farce, and I think it's just stupid to run it. I think they should have postponed it. And John, I saw clips of that fucking dork, Gronk. I don't know who the fuck he is. I've heard his name. I don't watch the NFL. I'm not familiar. I don't know how great of a football player he is, but I saw him come down that fucking ramp, and he's doing this stupid dance, and I'm thinking, is this guy thinking he's like fucking like Alex Wright, Das Wonderkind? Because he's doing a poor imitation of that fella. Because Alex Wright is a great dancer and wrestler. Gronk is just a complete dork. And if nothing else, that completely turned me off to wanting to watch 2 nights of this fucking guy. No, fuck no.
Oh, that's what I need during this time. I needed a WH Park rant, and Gronkowski was your perfect target. So I'm so glad I was able to provide that for all of our listeners. Thank you, WH.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm here to try to provide some normalcy. John, WrestleMania, I don't even think about like how stupid that whole idea of running it still at the PC. Anyways.
Well, everyone. Is there any other final thoughts? I mean, what is keeping you busy wrestling wise? Is there any other stuff that you've been checking, or are your days still pretty like you're working and stuff? So it's not like you have this abundance of free time, but anything in lieu of, a lot of companies running, is there anything you've been checking out?
Yeah, just watching more movies and TV shows on Netflix. I'm rewatching the first season of Altered Carbon. Have you ever watched that, John?
No, I have not.
That's a really good SF show. Like this concept of transferring your consciousness to different bodies in the future is really cool. There's 2 seasons, and they just released the anime. I watched the like kind of companion anime. It was like just under 2 hours. Fantastic. I really recommend watch the first season. If you like that, go ahead with the second season. They changed the main actor because like he can the main character Takeshi Kovacs can transfer his consciousness into different bodies. So the first season is an actor by the name of Joel Kinnaman, who people might know from he was the RoboCop remake. And then the second actor to play the same character in a different body is Anthony Mackie, who's the Falcon in the MCU. So I thought both those guys were really good in playing the same character, sort of. And then there's an anime called Resleeved that's kind of set on a planet that's supposed to be Tokyo. It's an entire planet of Tokyo, John. Like that. How fucking cool is that?
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like a great recommendation. I have not been able to dive into anything on Netflix. This has actually been a pretty busy week, and it's also adjusting to a completely different work schedule. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to have more time on my hands in the weeks to come. Granted, this could be going on for a while. So, maybe WH will be chatting, sooner than later. I hope on our next show we have more, to discuss, although there was really quite a plentiful amount of topics, on this month's show. But, we'll definitely have you back, maybe sooner than later.
I definitely think there's going to be a lot to talk about with all these new shows running, John. I'm hoping most of it's good news. I hope there's no bad news, but I definitely think there's going to be more to watch and consume and have thoughts about in the coming months, for sure.
Well, if New Japan runs its Sumo Hall card, maybe we'll get together shortly after that. So I'm glad things are, at least I'm hoping making a turn for the better. I'm glad you're safe, WH, and that things eventually return to normal. It feels like a long time ago that things were such, and it's been, man, this is going to be an era that we talk about for years and years. When we are old, we are going to be asked about living through this time period, I feel.
Can I just say one thing before we go, John, is that I want to thank you and Wei for a lot of the amazing content you guys have been putting I know a lot of people have said this already, but the hangout with Benno is fantastic. But with Dr. Alex Patel, that was really reassuring to me, about okay, what's true and not true about, the coronavirus going around. And Wade did that show with, one of the listeners who's also a counselor, Ahmed Butt.
Ahmad.
I thought that was a really good show as well. And I really enjoyed hearing that. And I just you guys are trying to find the levity in a lot of the things that are going on in terms of what's happening in wrestling and MMA, and I appreciate being able to listen to it and just and just feel a sense of normalcy and get updates about what's happening in Toronto. That's my hometown. Like, you guys are a big source for me of like, okay, what's Toronto been like, and what's the kind of, the mood been there? Like, I talked to Mike Murray, obviously. I've been talking to Davey a lot. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of free time on his hands, and just other friends back home in my family, of course, as well. And things seem okay for my circle of, people in Toronto, but like, it's just something that I cling on to as a way to keep, up to date with what's happening back home.
Well, I really appreciate that. We've been very fortunate to have some very qualified people that have been willing to come on and speak with us, because it's such a big thing at this point for me, where wrestling, I understand it's a distraction for a lot of people, but I think we'd be doing a disservice not to be focusing on some of the major events that are affecting everyone at the moment. So I hope we're striking that balance for everybody. We're trying our best. So WH, thanks so much just for taking some time out to chat. It was just great to catch up and chat with you, because as I was saying earlier, it's been a bit since we've done a show together. So I always enjoy sitting down and hearing about your thoughts about Rob Gronkowski or anything else.
Same here, John. Same here.
All right. Give the man a follow. WH Park, the number 9 on Twitter. And look out at postwrestling.com. He's got that Champion Carnival preview up on the site, which as of right now is in place. And he will have a preview of the Cinderella tournament. And later on this week, he will have a review with Davey Portman that, again, you can check out on their Patreon, patreon.com/upnext. That's it for us. Have a great one.